Hello. Are we up and running?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Awesome. Good deal.
All right. Well, we are in. Tell you what, we have a really bad storm blowing through, and my family's not in yet, so they'll be coming in probably with it bad. Actually, I just thought of something. Let me go do something real quick, and while we're waiting on people to come in.
Okay. Sounds good.
The dog's freaking out a little bit about the storm too.
Yeah, I came through storming pretty good earlier today.
Yeah, we've got another hour to go on it, so and he's going to be loud. All right, I'm going to. I got to pull something up for the website. Cutting it close today. I was trying to get a video up and lost track of time. I've got the video done. It's loading.
Oh, nice. I've been working on my first video as well.
Nice.
It's going to be probably fairly long.
Just try it. That's what I'm enjoying right now about things, is just trying it. All right, I'm going to have to move him somewhere else. Hold on. Let me get to this window so I can mute myself. That's great. The window has disappeared on me. Hold on. Oh, let's see. Where did it go? That's not it. Ah, there we are. All right, I got a guest for the show. Let's see if he'll behave for a little bit. He's freaking out because it's lightning and thundering pretty bad. All right. See, the link went out from fishfam.link. I see we got 3 people in here.
How's everybody doing? Thanks for joining us tonight.
Little crazy time here getting the live stream up and going. Storms blowing through here in Knoxville. Tanner had it earlier today. Is that what you said?
Yeah, probably around mid-afternoon it came through pretty good.
Yeah.
But it passed on pretty quick. We're still needing rain though. It's crazy.
Oh, we've had rain. We've had lots of rain.
I think before this last little rain, we went a month without rain.
Yeah.
So it's just super dry.
Yeah, we've been pretty wet for a while now. I mean, it was dry there for a long time. He's He's not going to sit comfortably. All right. I was trying to get something up for us to look at the beginning here. I think I've got it. So let's do that.
How's it going, the Zen Ginger?
Hey, the Zen Ginger.
Glad you could make it.
This will be the first time I've tried to share a website. Let me see. I want a window and I want that window. We may have done this once before. I may have done this with CFI, didn't I?
Yeah, I believe you did. You shared their website.
Yeah. Still learning, still playing around, still learning this thing. All right. I don't want that on the screen yet, so let me pull it down. Okay. So you may hear the thunder. I know I can hear it. It's pretty loud, rattling and everything. But we're getting started here, and I'm really going to tank this one because I just realized I'm not plugged up. But I've got 80-something% battery. We're going to try it.
Oh, you'll be fine.
I may duck out and go plug it up at some point. Oh, live streaming's fun. So thank you for joining the live stream, Scruffy City Aquatics. And my name's Mitch. I've got Tanner here with me with TK Aquascaping from Instagram, maybe soon to be YouTube.
I created the channel today. So it's been made. The first video's in the works. It's going to be a tank tour introduction of me and my hobby. And I've been filming it over the past 2-3 days, actually. So
yeah,
it's almost done. I got a little bit left to film and then to edit. And then hopefully into this week, it'll be happening.
Nice.
But yeah, I'm TK Aquascaping on Instagram and YouTube.
All right. And we'll be sure, we'll be talking about it. Once you get that video out, we'll be sharing it. And people can find you on Instagram. I know we've shared that, but TK Aquascaping. And let's see, we've got some people coming in the chat now. We've got Crown Tail Half Moon saying, hey, hello. And 3G is here with the peace sign.
How's it going?
Thank you all for joining us. All right. So to begin with, we were going to take a moment and talk about fishfam.link and just say thank you. When I started the channel, Ed was telling everybody about the channel, and I happened to be, I don't remember if he was in a live stream with Matt or what it was, but they got to talking about it, and me and Matt connected, and he got us listed on fishfam.link. So for anyone who doesn't know, and there may be some, I'm sure most of the people in the chat know, but maybe on the replay you don't know, there is a site you can go to. It is fishfam.link, and it will let you know who is live currently. There's an ad. I hit the wrong thing. Here we go. So you can see who is live currently. There we are. We got Hippie John the Fisherman is live. And then also a link to the Discord. I don't know if you've been on the Discord, but it's a lot of fun. I spent some time over there.
I'll have to check it out. Hey, Kane, how's it going?
Hello, Kane. There is also a way to discover what's going on. And there's Fish Fam stores, some merch, things like that. You can find stuff for, I think, various channels. And then one thing I wanted to point out was the calendar. And the calendar will tell you what all podcasts, part of Fish Fam and on fishfam.link, are available when, so that you can go through. And what's cool about this is you can click on these, and you can click on it. It'll bring up a profile for this channel and live stream. And you can click here. If they're live currently, you'll go straight to the live stream. So it'll dump you into the live stream. And there's also links here where you can get like my email address. You can go to my YouTube, my Instagram. And so all of that, when when TK Aquascaping gets going with his video, we'll make sure we contact Matt and let him know that you've got a site out there. I don't know if it's just for live streams or if it's for all fishy channels. I guess it is live streams because
Gotcha.
there's the calendar and everything. And you're not planning on live streaming right away, if at all.
No,
you're just going to stick with us.
We've got this live stream. And speaking of that, we've got Red Laser, Lady Rorschach, Skull Aquatics in the chat. Hey, everybody. How you doing?
Right.
Thank you for joining us tonight. But yeah, 2 live streams is hey, maybe you could co-host on my live stream.
Well, that's what I was saying when we were talking about it the other night. I was like, I could do one and then you could do one. We could do 2 30s. That would make everybody mad. We won't do that.
Yeah, the hour still just goes by so quick.
It does. For sure. It does. One thing I wanted to point out, fishfam.link, there is a Patreon. And so you can go through here and support the fishfam.link with different tiers, different ways that you can support it. So check that out and see if that's something you want to support, because it does help. It helps get the word out on who's live streaming, who's out there, who's available. Very, very cool resource. I was very thankful to be added to it, and wanted to support it, wanted to share it, make sure everybody was aware. So let's see. You said hi to Keeper Kane. Yeah, I see your name there. We talked about Keeper Kane, Kane's new YouTube last week.
Yeah, Kane had a great kind of fish room tour for his first video, and for my first one, I saw that and I was like, "That's what I need to do. I just need to get a little sample of everything." And I think Kane did a very good job with that. If you haven't seen it, you should check out that video. Kane's a great guy. He's got so many tanks. It's crazy.
It is crazy. There are tanks, and he's constantly building and redoing and getting rid of stuff and adding stuff. It's been crazy just watching him build all that. So let's see. Zen Ginger. Let's see what's on here. Okay, does Tanner have YouTube content at all yet? Maybe he can type in the chat. No matter how I search it, I don't see him. Thank you, the Zen Ginger, but he does not have the first video up yet. It'll be coming out as soon as he's done with it. We were just letting people know that it's coming.
I just sent.
Thank you for trying.
In the chat, I sent as my name on YouTube. It's TK Aquascaping. But hopefully into this week a video. If not, sometime next week. But it's happening. I've decided it's happening. So
we were talking about it this weekend.
Yeah, I had some fun this past weekend with Sean Peck of Peck Tech. We got to help out with a video of his, and I was like, man, this is fun. Yeah. I've been on the fence for a while, but I think I'm gonna make the leap and give it a try. Yeah, I remember the first time I mentioned it to you, we were at Aquaticon, and I was like, I'm starting a YouTube channel, starting to play around with it. And you were like, wow, there's so many people doing it, and I was like, yeah, there is, but it's still fun. And I could see it. I could see it in your eye. You were like, oh, maybe I do want to do that. Because I think you said you had considered it in the past. Yeah, I've done YouTube for other hobbies in the past. But I really I think the fish community on YouTube is it's different than a lot of different YouTube niches. And I like the community aspect. So that's kind of what I want to dive into and kind of build help just be a part of the community, really, because it's a group of great people.
Yes, absolutely. It's such a great community. There's so many great people, and everybody's so supportive of one another. That's really what I like about it, and what has kind of driven me to do it, because, my hobby started with online, as far as hanging out with people. That lightning was close. Talking with people about the hobby, it was all online for the longest time for me, until just recently, when the club started up and I started to meet people in the area. But what that did is once a month, I was getting together with people, and I was like, wow, I really want to get more involved on a weekly basis, on a daily basis online now, because I want to spend more time in the hobby. So that's what happened. I saw, let me see if I can find it. Red Laser says, I caught Tanner and Peck Tech landscaping presentation. Try this Zen in the meantime. Okay, so we've got a link for what I think was the ETA's last meeting, and you guys were on that. So people can go to there to the East Tennessee Aquatic Association and check out this past weekend's meeting where Tanner was part of the presentation talking about aquascaping and planting plants. You did a fabulous job, by the way. That was great.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I was, I think it may have been, I can't remember if it was you or Jason I was talking to. I was driving over there so nervous.
Yeah.
And then especially seeing all the people that showed up, I was like, oh no, I've got to plant a tank.
Yeah. So it was our record attendance. We had 43 people there.
So it was a great time. There was a good group of people there. It was a blast, just being able to, so it was just a blast being able to talk about kind of what goes through my head when I plant a tank and how I try to maintain it. So definitely check out the ETAA video. You can kind of get a glimpse of probably how I'm going to be on videos. So
yeah,
if you don't like it, stay away from me then.
Yeah. You know what? I'm on there too at the beginning or was it after you all? It was after you all. I don't even remember when it was, when they had me talk about floaters. You guys were still working on the aquascape. While I was doing that, and Sean was giving me a hard time to keep calling them floaters. I was talking about floating plants. And what was funny was I took a bunch of cups of duckweed and frog bit, and I took that and I talked everybody out of taking it. Here's the family's home. But I talked everybody out of taking it because I brought it all back home, and I said, if nothing else, just these cups. The cups are worth bringing home.
Oh, and I see in the chat, thank you all for subscribing. I don't have anything out, but I appreciate it. That's greatly appreciated and awesome. I'm excited to have that first video out. It should be fun.
You talk about that for a moment. I got a bell on you for just a moment, and I'll be right back.
All right. Mitch has put me on the spot here. But yeah, I'll just sort of, I guess, introduce that first video a little bit if y'all want to hear about it in the meantime. I just sort of gone around and filmed all the tanks that I have, and I'm going to do a brief little overview of them. And I've got plans for future videos. I'm going to be building some new tanks, so I'll do a full build video, full breakdown on, what I'm running on, like the tank behind me, what's in it, that sort of stuff. So just basically showing kind of what I do in the hobby, and hopefully y'all will enjoy it. Looks like Mitch is back, or not. But so that's the plan. I'm just going to sort of, do videos probably fairly consistently, not go crazy with it, just still try and enjoy the, have it add to the hobby. But this, I guess can talk about this tank behind me if y'all can see it. This is actually in my bedroom. I kind of switched up the live stream location for tonight. Haven't shown this tank yet, and it's one of my favorites. Just did a huge trim on it, so it's looking a little sparse right now. Mitch keeps.
You want me to give you the full screen for that?
Oh no, you're fine. I was just filling time till you got back.
Okay, sorry about that. Like I said, the storm's been bad, and my family was still out, so they just got in, and I wanted to check in with them, and they're trying to get settled, so they're also passing through. You can hear me, right?
Yeah, I can.
Okay,
hear you.
All right. This is off the rails. This is not good. All right, let me pull up. So tonight we were going to talk about favorite easy plants. That's what's on the agenda. Oh, I may have to edit this one some when I put it on the replay. All right, let's pull this up. There we go, like last time. Got a few slides here. So, yeah, so on this week, I'll see how many times I can say so as I try to get things pulled up and ready to go. All right, we're ready to go. We wanted to talk about something else. We started last week we talked about fish for a little bit. This week we want to talk about plants for a little bit. And just like last week, I wanted to make sure that everyone knew I already see some showing up in the chat. That's cool. But hold on to them. Hold on to your favorites, because once we talk about ours just for a little bit, and feel free to chime in on that conversation as we're going, because we're going to interact with you while we talk about our favorites. And then when we get done with those, we'll look at the chat for your favorites and we'll talk about those. Okay. That's how we'll do this tonight. So starting off, I mean, everybody knows I like Crips, and I know you've got Crips were high on your list as well.
Yes.
Now you're better with the names and everything. So tell me, is it Winty? Deadeye? How do you say it?
I think it's Winty or Winty
I mean,
Eye. I know it's got the two eyes at the end.
Winty Eye.
Yeah, I always call it like Winty. Now I can't even say it.
I knew I would do it. So this is by far my favorite plant. And what's funny is initially when I was looking online, I was looking for easy plants. My very first tank, or my very first planted tank, was a disaster. My first few planted tanks were disasters. And so I was looking for easy plants that I could use, that I could grow and would do great. And I'd always heard about Crypt Melt. Everywhere that I looked online, anytime I found anything about Crips, Crypticorns, I would find that people talked about them melting. And of course, I'm already having trouble with plants. I don't want to deal with melting plants. I mean, I'm melting plants already. I don't need a plant that everybody says melts. So I stayed away from it for a very long time. I picked up Amazon Swords, Anubias, got into those. Everything was going well. And I was at Aquatic Marine, and this is the old Aquatic Marine before Kenny purchased it. And no, actually it wasn't. Kenny had just hadn't owned it too long, and Isaac had just started there. And they had someone drop off a bunch of, like, there was this whole tank of floating Crips. And they were pretty good size, and they had a good price on them. And I was like, wow, it might be a good time to try it and see what I think about it. I wasn't sure if I liked the crinkly leaves or the bright green color. And so he talked me into it. He did a good job. He always does a good job, but he talked me into it. I decided to try it. And while there, I also saw a bronze. Now they were both marked Krypticorn, Windeddy, Windedeye. They were all marked. They were both marked that, but one is definitely green and one is more of a bronze color. And there's a mix of them in this image right now. You can see the lighter green and then the darker kind of bronzed green that's there. Sorry, the dog needed to be let into his pen. But you can see there's a couple there. And so I started off with just these two Crips. My camera's like right here. Just these two Crips. And they took over this tank. They did great. Of course, they were always grown underwater. I didn't have to deal with them, being grown out of water and then me having to get them to adapt to being underwater. But at the same time, Crips are known for being picky about the water that they're in, and even to the point that even just moving them from one place in a tank to another, I've seen people talk about how they'll sometimes melt back and grow again. I've never experienced that. From day one when I took these, and to say that my water is very different from Aquatic Marines because they have their RO system. I do not have an RO system. So when I moved them to my tank, they didn't melt back. They did great. I've never experienced them melting back. I think that just has to do with our water being so rich in nutrients. but they've done really, really well for me, and I really like the look of them. They got real thick and just started filling up the tank, and the more space they took up, the more I enjoyed them. And not too long ago, I was like, I'm going to do stems. I'm going to try to do stem plants, and I tried it, and it still didn't work for me. And when they started melting back, I just threw them out, busted up some crypts, and just went crypt all over the 75. But I love this plant. It's one of my favorites. I know it's one of yours too.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking on the Crypt Melt, that's something I talked about on this last Saturday at the club meeting. Ways to, sort of prevent it, ways that, in my experience, that it's happened. I think the biggest thing, and this is just a personal experience or thought, is that most of the time the Crypt Melt happens when you buy crypts and they're grown out of water. You're going to lose all those leaves, or unless you're running. The only time I haven't had the immersed leaves die off is when I've been running CO2. So I think that's something I talked about in the meeting, was trim off a lot of those, immersed grown leaves, leave one or two so they can photosynthesize. But as long as your roots are good on a crypt, it's going to grow back. But they're one of my favorite plants. Mitch summed it up perfectly.
Yeah, and I've even branched out into others. Like I have Crypt Parva, and I mean it still looks like the day I put it in there because that's the slowest growing plant in the hobby.
It grows so slow.
And Sean's got that tank that's just full of them in the front. Yeah. And but I've also at Aquaticon I picked up Crips Perales, and I found it today because I planted it kind of mid toward the back, but not quite in the back. I put it in front of one of my Amazon swords so that I could find it. And I do see, because it did melt back. That is a crypt that started to melt on me a little bit. But it has two good sized leaves and a new one. So it is starting to grow. It is starting to take off. I'm looking forward to seeing that. I know it's supposed to get pretty tall. I've got a 75 gallon. So I'd like to see it get pretty tall in the back of that tank. And just go full
that's
crypt.
A really cool plant, the Crips Perales, because in my tanks they'll grow up to the surface and then sort of lay over at the water, so they kind of like come out this way, almost like if you've got Sagittaria or Jungle Val, they kind of do that sweeping motion. They're really cool. One crypt I've had my eye on is the I think it's the Tiger Spiralis. And
okay, I've not seen that.
It's a red version, pretty much.
Okay.
That I haven't seen it locally. I mean, you can order it, but I just haven't done it yet.
Now I've seen or at least I've seen it online, the pink flamingo Krypticorn.
Yes.
And that's a pretty impressive plant. I've considered picking one of those up if I could find one that's not like $30. I did hear someone in the club. I didn't pinpoint where it was. Like I heard, I just got a pink flamingo crypt and I planted it this week. And I was like, "Who said that?" And I never could find the conversation.
Yeah, I was talking with Cody. That was at the club, the one that brought all the Dragonstone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So he had just gotten a pink flamingo crypt. He was asking me about Crypt Melt. I've had a pink flamingo. And, it was completely grown immersed. All the leaves are green. I'll post a picture of it on the Instagram, but it's about this size now.
Nice.
And it's beautiful. The first time I got one, though, I got a tissue culture, and it just got wiped out. Don't know what happened.
All right. Yeah. I've heard it takes pretty high light to keep it that pink color as well. So, who knows what I would end up with. Who knows? The another one that I have added to the tank recently was the Krypticorn Tropica that I got from you.
Yeah.
And it looks nice. It's still small. It's not taking off. The video that I've uploaded that will be coming out probably late this evening, doubling up to make up from Saturday where I didn't get a video out. But that video is going to show I've had a setback in the 75. And I actually had to go in and do some maintenance on that tank and clean some stuff out. and it's looking kind of thin right now. So we'll see it grow in the next little bit. Yeah. I mean, it had to happen. It was looking bad, and it was my own fault. I let those. That's why I was so upset with floating plants. I'm trying not to call them floaters. Floating plants at the meeting is because they've ruined my 75. They've not ruined it. I was going to catch up with the chat because I saw some stuff. People were telling us how we should pronounce. I see Skull Aquatics says, I like Crips too. I like Crips. The Zen Ginger says, Went T.I. We've got Lady Rorsack. I don't know why I have trouble saying it when I'm live. I need more Crips, LOL. I reached out. I apologize. I was like, I kept messing that up, and I don't know why. We've got some other ones being mentioned, and Keeper Kane says, Windy tie. So we've already got 2 versions here in the chat. They're pretty close, though. And Zen Ginger actually has some info here. It's named after a person named Went, and the II is always pronounced EI. So it's Went EI.
That's good to know.
Just saying, LOL. Let's see. Kane says I've said it wrong way too many times to change, and that's absolutely going to be me. I'll never be able to get it right because I've said it wrong for too long. Let's see. The Zen Ginger says I won some Crypt Ponderilifolia red lips like a month ago, and I've almost killed it already because it was emergent growth, but I didn't give it enough humidity. Okay, so you're growing it out of a tank?
Interesting. That's a crypt I have not seen before. Just looked it up on Google, and it's got some very big leaves on it. Looks like it has some big green leaves on it. That's very cool.
Yeah. Patty's helping me out. Thank you, Patty. Rorschach is rhymes with horse shack. Rorschach. What's funny is, I mean, I read comics growing up. I know it. I just, for some reason, when I'm on here, I can't say it. I don't know what it is. Anyway, let's bring this up, and I moved us over here. So that's Crips. You also had, now what is this? Is this a Tropica?
Yeah, that's one of the Crypt Tropicas. That photo came out of when I redid the 40-gallon right before the spring aquarium swap, the club swap.
Okay.
And that's one of my favorite Crips. I've got a patch of it in the current setup of the 40-gallon, which little teaser, that will be getting a rebuild soon and will have its own video series. But yes, the Crypt Tropica, I really like the ruffled leaf look. I like I like how in tanks I like plants with a lot of texture because it just adds, things that catch your eye and different variations. So that's one of my favorite plants. If you got high lighting, it'll grow real low. But I've got it in low, it'll get the bigger leaves with longer stems with lower lighting, but Crips are definitely one of my favorite easy plants. I started out with, now I'm going to say it wrong probably, Windy Eye.
Winty Eye. I think Winty Eye was the correct pronunciation.
Winty Eye. Okay. I'll try and remember that. We've said it so many different ways, but
yeah,
that was the green Winty Eye was one of the first plants I started with in a little 10-gallon, and it just took up half the whole front of the 10-gallon. I was like, this is such a cool plant. So I think they'll always be one of my favorites.
Yeah. Now my green, when I first got it, it was just like 3 shoots and a leaf, and 3 leaves. There was not much to it. And at one point it became this really massive, thick, bush of a plant that was just great. But over the years with different, as the tank has changed, it's been a lot leggier, like not leggier. Just thinner. And I think that has to do with, I honestly think it has to do with the floaters. I know the Crips don't need a lot of light, but I think the nutrients, even though they're root feeders, and I put root tabs in there, I still had quite a bit of melt over the last few weeks. Not nearly as much as the other plants. The Crips did better for sure, but still experienced some.
Yeah,
I want to say. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say with the floating plants, this yesterday was actually covered with red root floaters. And I started noticing stuff was growing just real. My Rotala was growing real leggy. And so I went ahead yesterday and cleaned it out, because I definitely think that floating plants are great. They do some really, they help out the tank quite a bit, but the plants in the tank started suffering because they grow so fast.
Yeah,
it's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah. Well, it helps. I threw them in the pond when I started it, just to make sure things didn't go out of, I didn't have any nitrate spikes or ammonia spikes or anything. I wanted to make sure there was something there to help control that.
Yeah. Any new tank I set up, I'll put, throw a handful of floating plants in just to shade a little bit of the light and then get those excess nutrients at the beginning out.
But I would recommend sticking with something like red root floaters or frog bit, something that's easier to get out of there, and not duckweed. Don't ever do duckweed. You have to really, really love how duckweed looks in order to appreciate duckweed. I want to say hi to Patty. I mentioned Patty, but Patty's Petite Tanks is here, so thank you for coming by. Verily, Casey's in the chat. And we said hi to Skull Aquatics earlier when I was having issues. Yeah. So thank you all for joining us. And anything else for Crips?
No, give them a try. They're great plants. You can't go wrong with them.
You can't. Absolutely can't.
If you get a little melt, don't freak out. That's all I can say. Trim off if a leaf's dying, trim it off. But give it a try. They'll grow slow at first, but they're awesome plant.
Yeah, as long as you have roots, they're still good. If there's roots, they're good. Yep. All right. So our next plant. So Crips were kind of my pick. You also had them high on your list. You sent me two. So here is your official plant, Buse.
Yes, Bucephalandra, and this is, I would say, it kind of has a stigma in the hobby as being a hard to grow plant. A lot of people, they're kind of an expensive plant unless you shop smart for them.
Right.
But over the last year or so, I've kind of got a collection of them, and they're very similar. If you can grow Anubias, you can grow Bucephalandra. They grow very similar. They're an epiphyte plant. This is, I believe, it's Buce. I'm not great at the the exact plants yet, but I believe that's Bucephalandra. And they're just they get that kind of dark blue hue, sort of red tones on them. And that's actually one that's blooming. That in the center of the screen is the bloom. They kind of look like a peace lily bloom, but they're great plants. Just like Anubias, you can glue them onto a rock, glue them on a driftwood. And they grow slow. But the reason I called them an easier plant is because they don't need high lighting. They grow so slow, similar to Anubias, that if you have highlighting, they can be prone to algae. But the one caveat to that, besides Anubias, that's different from Anubias, is I would say that if you have a new tank that'll have some ammonia in it and it's not cycled, I wouldn't add the Buce yet. I found that they're pretty sensitive to ammonia, and that will cause some melt on them. But other than that, just like an Anubias, glue them on something. They grow slow, but they put out some amazing little leaves. Good, like I was saying with the Crips, you can see on this one, it's got the ruffled edges of the leaves. I really like that variation. Let's see what the Zen Ginger's saying. I've only have one kind of Buce. I thought it was the Godzilla or King Kong kind, but I looked up my order history and it's green wavy. Yeah, the Godzilla and the King Kong are some that I've really been wanting for a while. They're a type of Buce that gets some really big leaves on them. The green wavy's very pretty as well. I would say my favorite Boost is probably I think it's the Boost Brownie. It's kind of got a circular leaf, more so it's a wider leaf than the Makeda Gang. But yeah, Boost it's a pretty easy plant, I would say, despite what others may say.
Yeah, I honestly don't know much about the plant. I've rarely seen it in my local stores. When I have seen it, I just assumed that it was going to be too difficult. Like you said, I'd heard online that they were difficult, but and honestly, for those who are still trying to dial in a tank, your lighting and your nutrients and everything, even with Anubias, I mean, sometimes fighting algae can be a problem. So, is this a plant? This would be a plant that it's best to put in an established tank or be very familiar with them, is what I'm hearing.
Yes, yeah. If you have not grown them before and you are setting up a tank day one, I would not put Boost in. That's the one time that I've ever had it be. I tried to do basically a 10-gallon aquarium with only Boost in it, and I planted it day one, and I just had tons of algae because there was nothing. The Boost was growing too slow to kind of suck up all the extra nutrients that were in there. But definitely would recommend if you don't. I would try to put it in an established aquarium if you don't know how it grows and are confident with it. But other than that, and I mean, I would almost say the same thing with Anubias if you don't have another fast growing plant.
Oh yeah, Anubias was one of those plants that I remember the first one that I got. It ended up covered in algae, and I was like, I'll never do that plant again. And then of course I came across the really large one that I still have, and is the one that's in my 75 right now, and it's a great plant. I love it, but I have had algae on it, and with Buse, is it? I'm going to do the name thing again. You said it a different way than I say it. I've said Buse. What is it?
Bucephalandra.
Okay, all right, never mind.
Boost is probably like the southern way to say it.
Okay,
yeah, I got some of them Boost plants.
Boost plants.
So, but it's
okay.
Bucephalandra. But yeah, and I think one reason that they're not commonly seen in stores is because they are a little pricey.
Yes, they are pricey when I have looked at them, because I've considered them. Now, another thing I didn't realize, you were just saying that about, you don't plant them, you glue them like you would Anubias. I didn't know that. I didn't know that this was a plant that you wanted to glue to something to hold it down.
Yeah, so it's let's see. Kane says,
is it a rhizome?
Yes, it's a rhizome plant.
Okay.
It looks the roots look very similar to an Anubias roots. They're just kind of mostly smaller. The rhizome and roots will be smaller, but Kane says he's got some Buse growing with his goldfish.
Interesting.
That is very cool. But yeah, I mean, I believe that most of the Buse plants come from Borneo. There's apparently a fairly there's a lot of people grabbing them from the wild. I know Buse Plant, the online retailer, they do a lot of farmed plants, so they weren't taken from the wild. So if you can get them from another hobbyist or get them from a reputable source that is not going out and taking them from the wild, that would be the best thing to do. That's what I try to do. The first Buse I got was I found a guy on a forum was like, hey, I'm selling this big mat of Buse for like $20. He was in Seattle. He mailed it to me, and I was like, this is so cool. I finally have some Buse.
I think I've seen it. There's one store that I know I've seen it in, and I didn't even look at the price. I know I've looked online, and they are pricey, and so it is one of those that I was like, I don't know that I'm ready to try that. Although the Anubias that I got, like I said, it was when I got it, it was big. It was like $25 on a piece of driftwood. So I mean, the wood and the plant seemed like a good price.
Yeah.
But some of them do. They're pretty pricey when I've seen them online. Kane says that tank is the one he was talking about at the meeting. where he's feeding green beans weekly
Right.
in order to keep his fish away from his plants. So it's a 210 community tank. Well, I'm sure we'll see that. We need a green bean feeding on your channel, Kane.
Yeah.
We need to
That
see
would be
that.
cool.
A lot of people had questions about, I've heard about feeding green beans out of a can or frozen online. I've never done it myself, but I've never watched a video about it either. I would watch it. I'd like it.
Yeah. I might try and give my plecos some green beans. I've given them zucchini and cucumbers, but haven't done the green bean. That might be worth a try.
Yeah. The Zen Gingers, we're talking about pronunciation. I say Boos, but to be fair, I'm from Texas, and that's more of an accent type pronunciation. So probably either could be correct. But however, you say the buh, the rest is Bucephalandra. Bucephalandra. Hey, that helps. That helps me say it. I just assumed it was Bruce without an R. Buse. That's where I was coming from.
That's a good way to think of it.
That's where I was coming from.
And another thing, if you're not wanting to spend the money on, one plant, you can get a tissue culture. They grow slower and they're smaller. But I've gotten some tissue cultures of Boost that have had, 15, 20 plants in it. And they're about the same price as a, potted plant.
Yeah. Skull Aquatics says, get the French cut green beans. Plecos love them. I may have to do a pleco one day. If I do a pleco, it's going to be a small pleco, though.
Yeah.
And it's going to be like a crazy pleco.
Yeah, I've been seeing. I've had one of the snowball plecos, and they're really cool.
Yeah, that's got the spots.
Yeah, it literally looks like it's a real dark color, and it looks like somebody threw a bunch of snowballs on it.
Yeah. Those look cool. I like those. And then there's the zebra striped ones. Those are pretty cool.
Yeah, the zebra plecos.
They're so bright. I don't know how they would look in my tank, but I think they look very cool. So, but that is. Did you have anything else for Buse or Boos?
No, I think we can carry on.
All right. Well, let's open it up to the chat. I know I've seen some others mentioned. We've talked about them somewhat. Anubius was on there, and we talked about how we like Anubius.
One that I saw in the chat was Water Sprite.
Yes.
That we haven't talked about. That's a great plant. I really like fast-growing plants too, because they just really help keep your tank stable. So Water Sprite's definitely a good plant. If you aren't into plants, that's one you should look for to try. You can leave it floating. You can plant it. It's a good plant.
Yeah, and that's why I tried it, actually. I picked it up. It was on my third or fourth attempt at a planted tank when I had done a lot of research online, and I had fertilizer to try. And I went to, I think it was JKS Aquatics had some kind of plant sale like they do once a year. And so I went down, and they had this giant tank. I don't remember how big the tank was, but it was tall. It was a really tall tank. And it had Water Sprite planted in the ground, and it reached the surface of this tank. Like, it was massive. So big that it broke before I got it home. There was no way it was getting home without breaking. It was just too big. And I talked to them because they had it both planted and they had it floating. And so I was like, what's best? And they were like, well, it really just depends on what you want. And if you're really looking for it to clean the water well, it seems to do better when it's floating. And that's why I wanted it. I wanted it to outcompete algae. I wanted it to give all my other plants a good chance at setting in. So I had it in my tank for a very long time, just floating. And I would try to plant it, and it wouldn't do as well planted. But when I would leave it floating, it would just grow out of control. At some point, though, with the floating plants, I lost it. It slowly died off. And every now and then I'll find a little bit of it, but I cannot get it to start back up in that tank. I'll have to put it in something else. As a matter of fact, I threw some in the pond, and I haven't seen any since I threw it in the pond. I don't know what's going on, but it is a great plant.
Yeah, I've always had success with it, just tossing it in the tank and letting it do whatever it wanted.
And it's got a really nice look. Like when it grows near the surface, it gets a little broader. than it does if you put it down in the substrate. And it's really cool looking plant, how it kind of curls out as it's growing and branches off. And that's where all of my fry came from, because they just lived in that water sprite and had a nice life there. and my shrimp too. Most of my shrimp were there when and I cut this out of the video that's going out, so it won't be in there. But I, for the last little while, hadn't seen a lot of my red cherry shrimp, and I was a little concerned that something was going on with my colony. And so when I got all of those floating plants out, all of a sudden, boom, there's red cherry shrimp everywhere. They were up in the floating plants. All right, we've got a good one. The Zen Ginger says, Subwassertang. Let's not discuss pronunciation. I didn't even give it any thought. I just threw something out there. It's pretty awesome. It can just hang out in the tank or tie it to the driftwood or decor. And one of the few plants Stephen P. sent me that I haven't killed. This is a plant I want. I have only ever seen it when I didn't know what it was. And now that I've seen it online and know what it is, I haven't seen it locally. But it is a plant I would buy. It's almost like a moss, right? But it's not. Like, it grows like a moss, but it's like got a leaf structure to it. And
I think it almost looks like kelp, like freshwater kelp.
Yes. Let me see if I can pull up.
Yeah, I'm looking it up because I don't. Is it a type of? No, I don't think it's a liverwort.
It kind of reminds me of one, though. Pull up an image. We'll share it.
It's a very cool plant. I've got it. I've had it in some tanks. The only thing that I did not like about it is how it breaks apart sometimes.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep it where you want it. But that's the same thing with moss or rickia or anything like that. Oh, we've got Crypt Aquatics in the chat.
You just missed that conversation.
We had a whole crypt conversation. But yeah, it's the Subwassertang, again with the pronunciation.
Yeah,
it's a cool plant. I also had some trouble with getting algae on it.
Oh, really? I could see that.
Just because I didn't really. I picked it up at a store one time and didn't really know much about it and just threw it in the tank.
Yeah,
but I think I've still got it. It's in similar to how you said the water sprite. It's in pieces of my tanks, like in small little spots.
Yeah. Crypt Keeper Aquatics saying, "What's up? Glad to have you. Thanks for coming by." Oh, the Zen Ginger says, "Don't quote me." What are we not quoting? We are not quoting.
I think it's a fern.
Oh, wait. Does that count as quoting? I put it on the screen. Zen Ginger may or may not have said this is not a quote. I think it's a fern. And it could be. It's a different plant for sure.
Yeah. Looking it up, apparently, it has a minimum tank size of 2.5 gallons. So don't want to overstock your plants. Yeah, it's trying to figure out what type of plant this is.
Yeah, everything I pulled up was either ads or sites that I didn't necessarily. Well, here we can show this one. Let me pull this up.
Huh. They're similar to those of polypodialine ferns. So
fern.
Zen Ginger may be correct. It could be a fern.
Yeah.
We are going to quote you.
We are going to quote you. All right. People go to Flip Aquatics all the time, so we can pull this one up. I don't know on live streams what the rules are here. So here is Subwassertang or Subwassertang. I saw somebody using a V in the chat. So says it's amazing for shrimp. So that's why I considered it. I thought it looked amazing for shrimp. They say it's greater than any other moss out there, but that doesn't mean it's not a type of fern. Because moss kind of looks like a fern, so maybe it is. I don't know. I don't think it is. But yeah, $20 for a portion. I'm guessing this is about a portion. I don't know how big the container is, but it looks like a specimen container.
Yeah,
yeah,
I
I
want to
would put that
say
in a
if
tank.
you can find it locally, some store, you know, how stores will sell the little deli cups of
Yep.
moss. I found it generally in that size, about $5 to $6, maybe 10.
Yep.
But that's one plant I've only seen a couple times in local stores. I don't think there's many people around here who keep it. Maybe.
Yes.
I'm not sure.
And another one, and I saw it the other day. I saw it in a cup the other day. It was a weeping moss.
Yes.
I thought about doing that one because I like it from what I've seen online. I like it better than the Java moss, which is what I've had in my tanks in the past.
Yeah, I think I've got the weeping moss in the 40 gallon actually.
Yeah.
It seems to grow a little more compact.
Yep.
Than the Java moss.
That's what I've read. That's what I liked about it. So the Java moss just kind of stringy and starts reaching out all over the tank, and that's what I don't like about it. I'm constantly like pushing it down, wrapping it around things, trying to get it to stay down. And I've read that the weeping moss is more compact. So the Zen Ginger says that Google says it is a fern native to Southeast Asia. So it's a fern. Settled.
Boom. Fern.
All right, so we've had Anubias, we've had Crips, we've talked about Buse, we even talked about Buce, and we've got Subwassertang, and I'm looking through. I see never duckweed. No duckweed. I'm trying to come up with a good shirt design for no duckweed. I've got one for algae. I got to send that to you when I get it done.
Yeah.
I got a shirt design for algae that I think I'm going to make, but I got to have a good one. Maybe it'll just say something about floaters. I don't know. I'll give Sean one. Killer Kitty 08 says, I like how he skipped the big names. Hi to everyone. Hey, Killer Kitty. Were you the name we skipped? I don't know that I got that. Zen Ginger says that she felt like she had to go to Google. That's okay. You were right.
You were right. You know, one plant we could talk about in the meantime before we, you know, keep sending plants in the chat. We'll talk about them. But one that we haven't talked about is Sagittaria.
Yeah.
Or, you know, jungle val, that sort of family of plants. They grow so fast, provide a ton of cover. Another one of the first plants I had in when I first got into planted tanks. And some people, you know, I still like them, but my biggest thing with them is they spread across the entire tank. This whole section here, as of yesterday, you could not see any of these plants. I pulled out, I videoed it, so it'll be in the video, but I pulled out about 40 or 50 of the Sagittaria plants.
You threw it in a 5-gallon bucket for the next time you come to Knoxville, right?
That might happen. I'll be there this Friday.
Ooh. So the one thing that I would say has been my experience, and I've seen a lot online with Vallisneria, is that when it takes a while to get established in a tank, or it can, not always, but it can. And when I first put it, and I just bought like 2 pieces of it, when I first put it in my tank, it did nothing. It didn't die. It didn't grow. It didn't sprout. It didn't do anything. It just sat there for months. I mean, 6 months. I'm going, is this ever going to do anything? Like I've seen online that it goes like you're constantly having to replant it because it just springs up somewhere else. And mine's not doing any of that. And then at some point, it was around 7 or 8 months, it just started growing and it just started taking off. And now I was telling you this weekend, it's in the back corner of my tank and it's only about 10 inches from reaching the other side of the 75 now. So it is big and it's not real thick. I don't have so many that it's like covering the light off of everything, but there's a few long leaves strands that go all the way across. It's really cool. But I love jungle val. I like the coloration on it and the little markings with the yellow. It's definitely my favorite of the val that I've seen. And but yeah, if you get it and it doesn't do anything for a while, that's not abnormal. Just keep feeding it root tabs and if you've if you've got a planted substrate and you're not like me and you're trying to do it with gravel, then maybe it'll take off sooner. But those of us who like to do gravel, it can take a while to get started.
This tank is almost entirely sand.
Yeah.
It's got some, I kind of did the, substrate in the back with sand in the front. So it grew all in sand with, I added some root tabs into the sand, but I think it likes the finer substrates almost so it can shoot its runners out. But once it gets going, it will take off.
Yeah, it is all over that back corner now. I have it around a sponge filter, and I want it to grow around the sponge filter so that I don't see it. Or don't see it as much because it's a large sponge filter. But anyway, that's the goal. And if you've got some jungle val that you were going to throw in the yard like Sean does, that was a funny moment. I'll share this. We were over at Sean's house getting ready for their presentation at the meeting, and Sean was also giving us a tour of his tanks. And he shot a little bit of a video. I think I was horrible in it, and so there's like 3 seconds of Mitch. But we were there, and before we left, we checked out the pond because his pond video was the first time I found his channel. It was a pond video. I think it was like an update on it was the first time I found his channel, and so I've been watching him for a long time since. But I was excited to see the status of the pond and to catch up on it. And so he's just kind of, pulling out algae and tossing it. And we're talking about the ponds and stuff. And he's like, look at this crazy Amazon frog bit. And he holds it up. The camera's over here. This crazy Amazon frog bit. And he holds it up. And there's like 3 or 4 like gigantic pieces. And he's like, it's growing up into my filter and it's always a problem. And he just like chucks it in the yard. And me and Tanner both go like we both looked at each other, and I was like, well, I'm going for it. So I stepped off in his yard and went for it. I was like, oh, that's good stuff right there. I'm taking that home with me.
We both looked at each other and we're like, are you going to grab it?
Yeah. I am not ashamed to go get that. It is in my pond as we speak.
Let's see. Killer Kitty is asking about the best place to order jungle val or any val. I would say if you have a local store, try there first. I always say to support your local stores, but if not, looks like the Zen Ginger has said Co-op has it.
They do. They normally do.
Boost Plant has it. That's probably, well, I haven't ordered from many online stores, but Boost Plant I've had pretty good success with. And then there's a variety of others. And then they're also asking, how much should I get to start? It really depends on how much of a space you want to fill, because you can get 2 of them like Mitch did and then fill out a whole corner of your tank in
12 months.
12 months. Or you can get more and have that more complete look from the start.
Yeah, it has a lot to do with how much money you have to spend on it, because you really could, so I'm of the philosophy of I want to try a plant out. So I don't ever buy a bunch of something that I've never had before. I'm just going to buy a cup. If it's a good deal, I might get 2 cups to get started. The Crypt Parva, I got 2 cups, but I bought 1, put it in, it didn't die, so I bought another. And that's like $8 a cup for the tiniest little plant you've ever seen. And, it's a slow grower. So I don't have much from what I got. But it made it. At the same time, I've had plants that I've bought, usually stems that don't do so well in my water. So I don't want to buy a bunch of it. I typically will buy, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, put it in the tank, see what happens. And whatever grows, then I'll buy more. So my recommendation is always try it first, get a little bit, see how it does, learn from the one. You may learn a lot. And then when you do it, when you go get more, you've overcome whatever obstacles you're going to see. But definitely the co-op does sell val. I didn't see jungle val on the website, but they do carry val. I picked up my jungle val at a local store.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely of the same philosophy as Mitch. I like to when I first started out with plants, I got as many plants as I possibly could, as many variety of plants as I possibly could, because you really don't know until you try it.
Mm-hmm.
You can hear us talk about, oh, these are the easiest plants ever,
Right.
and they may not grow for you.
Java fern.
Yeah, I was getting back to that. I can grow Java fern very well. Many people say it's one of the easiest plants ever, but Mitch kind of struggles with it.
I do.
No throwing shade, but you need to try as many plants as you can, because the easiest plant to you might be the plant that I cannot grow. There's easy plants that I am terrible with. You just have to find what works for you.
Yep. That's the thing. Just try them. See, do your research first, because, like we were talking about Buse. I've looked at Buse. I've considered Buse, but I've not looked into Buse, deeply. And I had no clue that it had a rhizome. Didn't know it. Would have got it home and been like, whoa, wait a minute. And I would have been Googling, would have been wrapping it up in a wet paper towel and Googling to make sure I wasn't doing something wrong. But yeah, you want to try things out and take your time with it. Plants can be expensive unless you've got a local club, and, then you can try plants out for free sometimes, or at least very, very cheap. And that's one of the benefits that people in Knoxville have with the ETAA, is that we like to share things and allow other people to try it. And also, if you can get to know people in your area who maybe have the same water, if they're not running RO and they're in your area, then they probably have already dealt with some of the same issues you would, as long as you're on the same water system. So, just getting to know people in the area, and a lot of times your store can be helpful with that too. I mean, your local store or at least they should, if they've been open for a while. Sorry if the dog's in the background, but if they've been open for a while, they should understand that if they just sell you a plant and it dies, that's bad for them. They're probably not going to sell you another plant for a while, but if it lives, you might come in and get another. So they should give you good advice, especially if you're a regular there already. And a lot of times they can get plants for you. I think people don't realize this. If you've got a local store that you go to, you can always say, hey, I'm interested in Jungle Val. Do you think next time you place a plant order, you could get me a cup? And chances are that's a common plant. They can get you a cup.
Yeah.
Definitely. And then you're not paying for the shipping or having to worry about the shipping with it being so hot right now. I know a lot of places struggle with that, with the heat being what it has been over the last few months. Some of the companies I've heard, Buse plants and I know from personal experience, Co-op does a really good job of preparing and also holding shipments when they know the weather's going to be really bad. So
I will say, I think Co-op's probably the best in terms of shipping.
Yeah.
Because places like Buse plant will, if you have your plants dead when they come in, they'll refund you. But there's nothing worse than waiting for your plants to come in, opening that box and just seeing brown. You're like, what?
Yeah.
So I would just be cognizant of when you order. Don't order it when it's 100 degrees outside.
When there's a heat wave, record-breaking heat wave coming through. Don't do it.
When there's an extreme heat advisory, your plants won't be happy in the mail.
Yeah. And I know the Co-op, they got those. I've not had a shipment with them because I've not bought plants in a long time from them, but they have those temperature controlled bags now, the cooler bags that they use. And I know that they use them in extreme cases. So, chances, and I don't think they charge anything for those either. Other companies offer them as an add-on for the shipping. I know they put heat packs. I have received plants when it was very, very cold, and there were heat packs in there to keep them warm. So very cool. All right. Well, we are almost 10 minutes over. It's been a fun conversation. Glad that you all joined us. We've had a good time with the chat. We've got Stills Linga in the chat. Thanks for coming by. Good evening. Sorry we're about to go, but glad that you made it. Hopefully you'll check out the replay. We had a good conversation about easy plants. And we talked about my affinity for Java Fern and its hatred of me. Yeah, Zen Ginger says, yeah, they added a liner to my order for free. Got an order on the way this week, and it's in the upper 90s. So they do a pretty good job, though. I know they really think about that at that place. So one of the things I like about the company, I put out a video not long ago about how my local store now sells, about to have to cough, sells the co-op product. And I'm really hoping the heaters and the lights become available as the heaters and the lights roll out, because I'm wanting to try those. So, but anyway, we've got to go. Thank you for coming to the live stream. It's been fun, and hope you liked it, and consider subscribing to the channel. I think I heard some people were subscribing to TK Aquascaping, even though you don't have a video out yet. So check that out. We'll be sure to share it as much as we can. And that'll be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that first video. Thank you all so much for coming out. I've said that too many times. I'm going to hit the button. Stay scruffy.